Good morning. Welcome to Imagine Your Life with Jenny Lynn McKinnon, your host today. I am so excited for the information that we're covering today. I have so much to teach, and I've been learning and practicing and using these principles of manifestation and talk about the subconscious mind. And so let me tell you what we're going to talk about today. And then we'll really dive in. And then we'll wrap it all up together. And I want you to end with a feeling of hope, knowing that tomorrow will be a better day, knowing that your heart will heal, hope that your relationships can be reconnected, hope that you can live the life that you've always wanted. So how is this going to happen today? That's a pretty big intention, right? Well, stick with me today because I want to teach you how it's possible, how to have hope in your life. And we're going to start with a quote because today I'm going to help you understand how to master your own subconscious mind and really connect with the powers within that you have within you. It's all there. You just get to take hold and master your subconscious mind, or you can always choose to be slave to your subconscious mind. It's all up to you. But today, I'm only speaking about the positive. The title of today's show is No Negatives, Only Say Yes. So when we end today, I want you to have a resolution and be resolved to only say yes to your life. I'm going to begin with this quote because this is what we'll be talking about today. By consciously directing our attention where we choose, that is the key to our inner power. And the more skill that we develop in learning to watch our experience without becoming emotionally activated, the more skill we have in placing and keeping our attention on the things we want to manifest. That's how we create safety. Now I quote again. When we resist events, whether physical or emotional, our resistance then stimulates the amygdala. And we're going to talk about more about that. The amygdala, if you caught last week's episode, I talked a lot in depth about the amygdala, the limbic system, the reticular activating system that's at the base of the brainstem, what that means, how it works. I just caught on all those things. Now you could research those things. There's so many books and charts and the brain, and you can get into the neuroscience and you could really delve in a lot. But what I want you to know for today is that you have the power to access your subconscious mind, take hold of that amygdala, the limbic system, that reticular activating system that controls whether you go into PTSD, like my horse that I talked about in the last episode, or if you go into clarity and decision making and creating and manifesting, the energy is the same. It's all in how you choose to name it. What are you going to call it? What is your story? Is your story that I'm a victim and my childhood sucked, so therefore my parents were awful to me and it's their fault, and we stay in blame and victimhood, and so therefore now as an adult my life is a mess because of my parents? That is the most disempowering story, and yet that is a story that so many, probably 95% of the world, tells themselves and that keeps them in their victimhood. I want to shift you from that space into empowering your story. That story that says, wow, yeah, I had a hard life, which everybody does. I don't want you to think for a minute that your stuff is somehow bigger and more grandiose and more awful and devastating. There are some really hard things in this life. I know that. I've lived it. And then I see it and I hear stories. I hear stories, some of the most terrible stories that have happened to children. And they're hard. They are really hard. But what I'm talking about is overcoming that. You can choose to stay stuck in your old story of the past, or you can choose to follow me and move forward and move through where you want to be. I want you to look at your results. Look at the results in your life. Are you happy with the results that you have? Are you happy with the fruit that your past story has been telling you and creating? If you want to create a new story, you want to manifest things in your life that you really do want, you do want your relationships to work out. You do want to be happy. You do want to have peace. You don't want to freak out and go into PTSD mode every time that you feel startled and somebody touches your shoulder unexpectedly and you suddenly have to pow, knock them out. I use that example because that is a true life example of one of my clients. And he is overcoming that and he's working through it. And how? How and why? Because unlike my horse, who really can't take control of his amygdala and his emotions, we're different. And that's what makes us human. And that's what makes us different than a horse or a dog, is that we can logically reframe and rewire our brain. And that's what today's show is about. So now let's start to delve in to how does this work? And as I reviewed last week, let's talk about the laws of the subconscious mind. The first one that we talked about was the subconscious mind only says yes. It only agrees with what we think, whatever we speak, it only says yes. So it's just like having a genie in your pocket, in the back of your head, that whatever you say, whatever you speak, then it goes to work to make it so, for the good or the negative. Then we talked about how the subconscious mind, in my second episode, shows no judgment, doesn't know the difference between right or wrong. There is no judgment there. As a child, it accepts everything as is. Now, last week we talked about the subconscious mind. It always looks for safety, even if the safety is an erroneous safety. It always looks for safety and it follows that pattern. And unless we take control of our own inner power, our own limbic system, then we're controlled by that PTSD moment. Last week was a lot about working through safety, how the subconscious mind always looks for safety. So how do we get past that? Well, we create a new pattern in the mind for safety. We redefine what is safety, what is safe in our life. We're not a child anymore. We don't have to fight. We don't have to run. We don't have to freeze in place to be safe. We get to rewire our safety mechanism of what is really safe for us. And then we can start to create and manifest and take risk and move forward in our lives in joy and happiness and creation mode. And that all happens as we take control of our subconscious mind. Now, the other laws of the subconscious mind, which we'll be covering in next week, which Today is all about how the subconscious mind does not recognize negatives and how we can use that to our advantage. And instead of saying no, we can say yes to what we do want. And then we'll be in future episodes, we will be covering how the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So what we imagine eventually becomes real. We'll talk about that. And then we'll be talking about how the subconscious mind only thinks in pictures and vision boards. So all of those fun things are coming. Today, let's go back to this law of safety, this law of the subconscious mind it only says yes to whatever we think or speak. There's no judgment. It's always looking for safety. And today we're talking about no negatives. Doesn't recognize negatives. The subconscious mind does not recognize negatives. And to prove this point to you, this is my favorite example. I want you to imagine that in your driveway, oh my goodness, in your driveway, there's this pink elephant. Do not think about the pink elephant. Whatever you do, do not think about the pink elephant that's in the driveway. Who's thinking about the pink elephant? Every single one of you. Because the mind does not recognize the negative before the picture. It only thinks in pictures, so it only sees the picture of the negative. And because the subconscious mind only says yes, and it doesn't have any judgment, and it's always looking for safety, then it's going to immediately go to the picture. Oh, this is what we want. We want this picture. It's a pink elephant. There's no logic there because there's no logic in the subconscious mind. It's illogical. We can use that principle to our advantage. Now I want to show you by 3 examples. So 1 is the pink elephant. Number 2, so here in the United States, we used to have a program in the 70s and 80s, and even into the 90s before we finally caught on as a nation that it was not working, called Just Say No to Drugs. And when I was in 5th grade, so I was like 9, 10 years old, I didn't know what drugs were. I didn't know what cocaine, heroin, meth, pills, uppers, downers. I had no idea what those things were. I was a kid. I was just living my life. And then we had a policeman, an authority figure came into my 5th grade class, and he showed us this whole demonstration about drugs, what they look like, little pills, blue pills, red pills. I just remember seeing this glass case that had all the samples of drugs and what they were, and so that we could avoid them. Correct? I mean, that was the principle. Let's educate, let's teach. And I grew up in Cache Valley, Utah, in a small town called Mendon. Went to Wellsville Elementary School. Very country, okay? That was my first exposure to drugs, was there in 5th grade. I had no idea, but what did it do to my curiosity and to every other 5th grader in that class? It heightened our curiosity and it went up to here. My goodness, what are drugs? Wow, those sounded really interesting, and I should be scared of strangers? I was never scared of strangers. And suddenly they're telling us that, oh, if you go into the cities, if you go into the parks, you got to be aware, which we do. All that stuff is good and the intention was good. But do you see what happened? Since then, in the 1970s, till now, it's 2025. My goodness, the war on drugs is real here in America. And it is throughout the whole world. It's not just a problem in the US, but it is becoming a much bigger problem in the US. And that's part, anyway, I'm not going to get into politics or issues. Just know that the problem has become so big and magnified. And why do drugs come into the US? Well, because people buy them. That's why. If people didn't buy them, and if we weren't addicted to them, then you know what? The industry would die because no one would buy them. So how do we change it? We finally got wise as a government and as a nation. And now instead of teaching children, it went from just say no to drugs to the DARE program, and that's a good program. But now it is to healthy lifestyles. And let's teach kids at a young age how to be healthy, what they do want in their lives. Let's teach them about how everything is important to them that goes into their body. So the messaging has shifted in the US, so that means we put in a different thought about the circumstance. The circumstance is drugs and addictions or I can't say they're overtaking America, but in many cultures they are. We insert a new thought. Now we have a new action. The action is we're teaching kids differently. We're taking accountability as adults, and we're spending more on recovery as a nation than we have ever in our government's history here in the United States. So we can expect a different result. The different result is a healthier society, healthier families, healthier children, and some peace and inner healing and resolution of that, right? So it starts with saying yes. What do we want? Let's say yes to what we do want, because that's where it matters. And so now we have the example of drugs, how this no negatives has affected a whole nation. The whole negatives with the pink elephant example. And now let's apply it to our individual lives. Now, I'm a parent of 6 children, 2 grandchildren. Oh, I love my grandchildren. That is my favorite title, is grandma. I'm going to lose my glasses for a moment. Because I love, love, love being a grandma. But parenting, if I knew what I know now as a grandma, and I were to go back and be a parent and I was doing it all over again, oh my goodness, I would be such a good parent. I just know it. But I don't get to do that. But I get to watch my daughters and my sons raise their children. And hopefully, my goal is to be an influence on my children. And I've taught them correct principles. They know what's right. They know what's wrong. And they're teaching their children correct principles. And then we govern ourselves, right? That's the law of agency. Well, when you tell a child, this is parenting tip number 1. When you tell a child, do not leave your shoes in the middle of the floor. Where do they leave their shoes? In the middle of the floor. When you tell a child, do not leave your backpack by the door or on the floor in the middle of the door, in the middle of the floor by the door. Oh, my tongue twisters. Sorry about that. So when you tell a child, your room is so messy, go clean up your messy room. Well, what does that child, what are they acting out? They're acting on their subconscious mind, completely from their subconscious mind. And so what's the picture that they see? They see in their subconscious, Mom wants me to leave my shoes in the middle of the floor. Mom wants me to leave my backpack right in front of the door. My mom wants me to have a messy room. Do you see the disconnect there? To reframe that in a positive way, that we're only saying yes, what if we spoke to our children and we told them what we do want instead of what we don't want? We say, would you leave, when you come home and you take your shoes off, could you place your shoes just right here in this spot? That would make me so happy. That would be great. And then you would know where they are when you need to put them back on. Just, you will put your shoes right here. Thank you for doing that. What if we were to say, oh, let's clean your room. When you have a clean room, wow, then you can find your toys and you can see what you want to play with. Oh, wouldn't that be so nice to have a clean room? Get them thinking about their clean room and saying yes to their clean room. And I was not above bribery as a parent, and I'm certainly not above bribery as a grandparent. And so it was really easy for me to throw in treats. Hey guys, let's clean your rooms and you can have a popsicle. You can have this cookie. We can go to the park as soon as our chores are done. It's always good. Our brains run on and thrive on rewards, on a reward system. That's a whole thing in the brain, which that is part of capturing the limbic system. So all that emotion that goes into a PTSD, fight or flight response, right? As we program ourselves to breathe, to take a moment, think of what we do want, then we can shift into a new energy, and we can say yes to ourselves. Like, do you really want to hit that person because they tapped you on the shoulder? Or do you want to say yes to why did you tap me on the shoulder? Let's stay in curiosity. What's important about that? Let's, instead of going into freeze mode and, oh my gosh, don't call on me. Don't call on me. I can't use, I don't want to, I can't, like, ugh, I can't speak. To take a deep breath. What if people want to listen to what I have to say? What if what I have to say can make a difference in someone's life? Do you see how that energy shifts? And we can start to take control of our own emotions and the limbic system within our brain, so we're not hijacked. Now, how do we really do this? It's not in the moment that we're hijacked. It comes in our breath. It comes in those moments, those quiet moments of reflection and meditation. The difference between meditation and self-hypnosis: meditation is lighter. Self-hypnosis, we're looking for resolution. We begin with the end in mind, and we start out with a deeper intention. Let's resolve, why am I having this PTSD? Where did this come from? Let's reframe this moment. Let's breathe through it. Look at it for what it really is. But it starts with meditation, which meditation starts with your breath. You create the environment around you so that you're safe, so that it's a very comfortable space, so you won't be disturbed. I like to set a timer when I'm meditating and when I'm going into self-hypnosis, because I enjoy that space, that unless I'm just going to sleep and it's nighttime, I still got to get up and get going. So I set a timer of, this is my time. And then I go into this to my head space, so to speak, and I focus on my breathing. Bring the attention to the breath. Focus on your breathing. Slow things down, at least 3 deep breaths. The breath turns off the fight or flight response in the body. The breath brings calm. The breath brings choice. You can master your breath. Unlike my horse, you can master your breath. So when you train yourself, but you train yourself in meditation, you see, you can feel, you can ask yourself, where did this come from? What is truth here? And you can pre-play that situation. You can change it. And when you change it in the safety of your own room, in the safety of your own mind, guess what? That the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So therefore, what's real or what's imagined becomes real. With PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, those of you that deal with it, you know how debilitating it can be and how scary at times. And I dealt with it myself. And the way that you calm that mind, your reticular activating system, and you get it to now, instead of creating cortisol and those fight or flight hormones, it creates calm and relax. The key is number 1 with your breath. And in this meditative state, you can pre-play that. Where is this coming from? What is truth? And then just allow your mind. They call it shadow work. Maybe you've heard that term when people say, oh, I'm doing my shadow work today. What does that mean? With a psychologist, what does that mean? Shadow work is working through the demons of your own past, working through those fears. And when you embrace that fear and you see it for the reality of what it is, the fear is diffused and eliminated. This is the book that I'm quoting today. I'm going to put it up here and just hold it. I'm sorry that it disappears and now we both disappear, but it's called Mind Magic. I put it in the chat. And if I hold it right here in front of me, you can see it. The neuroscience of manifestation and how to change and how it changes everything by James R. Doty. So if you check the chat box, I did put it in reference to the chat box. So he is a neuroscience. This is what he says about it. And I'm going to read directly as we begin to close. I intuitively understood that the manifestation of those entities, that means his fears, came from my own vulnerability to the shadow within me, my own fear of the unknown, and the aggression that came from a sense of helplessness, trying to protect my survival. Essentially, I understood I was afraid of my own fear. By recognizing, still reading, by recognizing my shadow self, I then could choose between resistance and acceptance. When we resist events, whether physical or emotional, our resistance then stimulates the amygdala. This is where you have choice. The amygdala is going to be stimulated. So when that resistance comes, are you going to choose to go into that fight or flight? And it may feel like it's just a reflex and you have no choice, can't control it at all. You have to get to control it in a controlled environment first, and then it will start to resolve in the outside world. That is because the subconscious cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. Imagine that. So by consciously, and now I'm quoting again and reading directly, by consciously directing our attention where we choose, that is the key to our inner power. The more skill we develop in learning to watch our experience without becoming emotionally activated, the more skill we will have in placing and keeping our attention on the things we want to manifest. That is the key to resolving PTSD, to capturing that emotion and moving it in the direction that we do want, moving it towards our future, a future of hope, of better relationships, perhaps the marriage of your dreams. What would that look like? To be married and have a companion that loves you and you love them and you cherish them and you grow old together. That doesn't happen by accident. You can have the life you desire. You want your business to thrive? Start taking control of this. And by mastering and becoming the master of your subconscious mind, then you can become the master of your future by mastering your past. I want to leave you with my favorite hypnotic suggestion. Here you go. You've heard it before. As you prepare for sleep every night, I want you to repeat in your mind the phrase, every day in every way, I get better and better. Repeated 10 times, one for each finger as your fingers touch the mattress and you prepare for sleep. In this way, you get your mind working for you instead of against you. And it is the first step to becoming master of your subconscious mind. So welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. And I'm so excited for you to join me again next week.